Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real game changer. We are unpacking Edward de Bono's revolutionary 1985 book, Six Thinking Hats. It's basically a masterclass on completely transforming how we communicate, how we solve problems, and ultimately, how we make decisions. So let's just jump right in.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start by looking at the chaos of normal thinking. Then we'll introduce the six hats themselves. After that, we'll break down facts, feelings, and risks, cover optimism, creativity, and control, and finally, we'll see the hats in action.
All right, Section 1, the chaos of normal thinking. Why we struggle to decide. Let's examine the real root of our communication problems.
You know, have you ever felt like your mind is just this complex labyrinth of overlapping thoughts? In traditional discussions, we're usually trying to juggle logic, emotion, risk, and optimism literally all at once. People interrupt each other, they challenge each other, and mostly, they just try to win arguments. And honestly, this usually just leads to absolute confusion and gridlock, rather than giving us any actual clarity.
Well, de Bono's core premise here is simple, but it is incredibly profound. He says that thinking is a skill. It's a skill that actually has to be deliberately practiced and organized. It's not just something that passively happens to us. So no matter how good we think we are, we should always want to be better thinkers, right?
Now notice the really stark contrast here. Normal meetings, they're totally adversarial. People attack each other, they defend their own positions, and let's be real, egos just get in the way. But de Bono says we've got to shift to what he calls parallel thinking. That means getting everyone to look in the exact same direction at the exact same time, cooperatively building an idea together instead of just tearing it down.
Which brings us to Section 2. Enter the six hats, a toolkit for the mind. This definition right here is the absolute foundation of the whole book. Parable thinking ends the endless debate and kicks off cooperative exploration. Instead of having one person play the eternal critic while somebody else acts as the eternal optimist, everyone in the room actually switches gears together to focus on the exact same perspective.
So how do we actually do this in practice? Well, de Bono introduces this really profound idea, act as if. He suggests that if you adopt the physical pose of a thinker, your mind is going to follow. If you act like a thinker, you actually become one. And his system gives you six distinct, deliberate roles to play to help guide your brain.
The crucial solution lies in these six metaphorical colored hats. Each one defines a very specific type of thinking. When you put a hat on, figuratively speaking of course, you're deliberately choosing to think in that specific mode. And the magic happens in a group when everyone wears the exact same hat at the exact same time.
Okay, moving to Section 3. Facts, feelings, and risks. Unpacking the first three hats. Let's break these down systematically.
First up is the white hat. I want you to think of a blank sheet of paper. When you put on the white hat, you become completely 100% neutral. You're focusing only on the objective facts, the figures, and the data. You literally leave all arguments and opinions at the door and just ask, what information do we currently have, what's missing, and how do we get it?
Next, we switch gears to the red hat. Think of fire, think of warmth. The red hat is quick, and honestly, it is so liberating. It signifies your emotions, your temper, and your raw intuition. And you know what the best part is? It is the one time in a professional setting where you absolutely do not have to justify or explain your feelings. You just put your gut reaction right out there on the table.
Then we have the black hat. This is the hat of caution, logic, and survival. It's the one that helps us identify risks, spot the fatal flaws, and explain exactly why a plan might not work. Now, it's incredibly valuable for preventing disasters, but de Bono gives us a massive warning here. Do not overuse the black hat. Getting stuck in constant criticism is exactly where most people and organizations completely fail to move forward.
Now for Section 4, optimism, creativity, and control. The final three hats. Let's pivot to the hats that really drive momentum, innovation, and structure.
We start this group with the yellow hat, which represents sunshine and brightness. This one is all about optimism and exploring the absolute positives. But listen, this isn't just blind hope. It actually requires real effort. The yellow hat actively forces you to find the logical, constructive reasons why an idea will actually succeed and pushes you to probe for that hidden value. Next is the green hat, symbolizing vegetation, growth, and high energy. Putting on the green hat is an explicit invitation to just unleash your creativity and think outside the box.
Under this hat, you're replacing judgment with forward movement, actively looking for new alternatives and lateral solutions to whatever problem you're facing.
And finally, the blue hat. Think of the sky just looking down on everything below. The blue hat is basically the director or the project manager of the meeting. It's used to manage the thinking process itself. This hat is usually worn by the facilitator, and it defines the agenda, enforces the rules, summarizes conclusions, and decides exactly which hat the group needs to wear next.
All right, Section 5, the hats in action, real-world impact. Let's look at how this theory actually drives massive real-world results.
Consider this absolutely staggering number, $250 million. That was the profit generated by the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. Historically, the Games always lost money or became this massive financial burden. But the lead organizer, Peter Ueberroth, used these exact lateral thinking concepts to totally transform the Games from a potential financial disaster into a massive, profitable success.
The sources also highlight how a team at Statoil used the hats to unblock a massive issue. A drilling manager brought a tough problem to the table, and the group applied the 6 hats systematically. Instead of just arguing endlessly, they generated a completely unforeseen, genius solution that literally saved the company millions.
So, how do you actually start using this tomorrow? Well, here's a pretty typical meeting sequence. You start with the blue hat to set your main goal. Then, the white hat to gather up all the known facts. Switch to the green hat to generate some fresh ideas, followed by a quick red hat gut check. After that, you weigh the risks and benefits using the black and yellow hats together. Finally, the blue hat steps back in to summarize and make the final decision. This structured flow is exactly what stops the chaos of everyone just talking over each other.
To truly benefit from this explainer, you really need to identify your own default thinking style and then actively train your weaker cognitive muscles. Like if you're a naturally critical black hat thinker, consciously put on the yellow hat and force yourself to search for value. If you're highly emotional, practice wearing the white hat to separate the cold, hard facts from your feelings.
Thinking is a deliberate skill, right? It's not just something you're born with. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Which hat do you currently wear the least? And what would happen if you deliberately put it on today? Take control of your mental team, start practicing parallel thinking, and just see how changing your hat can completely change your world.